Well, good morning. Do we have any visitors on this cold morning? Nobody? Wise people. Oh, there's one. Where from? Connecticut. Well, welcome. Today we celebrate what we call the Feast of the Epiphany, which is a Greek word, as it should be, since the Epiphany celebrates the feast, the time, the moment, when the salvation of Christ, the salvation which Christ was bringing to the world, was made known not just to the Jewish world, but to the Gentile world as well. And so this, for us, is our Christmas. It's our day of manifestation, when Jesus is made known to the Gentile world. Now, in the story, as it comes to us from the Scripture, there were three men, apparently, who came from the east. Now, the third graders call them the three wise guys. Some of us call them the three wise men, some the magi, some the three kings. But whatever you grew up knowing them as, the point is that they represent, in Scripture, they represent the making known of Christ to the non-Jewish world. And when they arrived, they apparently were astronomers, and they watched the sky, and they read the movement of the sky, and they searched all the sacred readings of all people. Now remember, they didn't have an internet, and so they had to check things out on papyri, and it was a long and laborious thing, and they used the texts of all peoples, not just their own. And they came across this unusual phenomenon in the heaven. And they began to search all the writings. And the only one apparently that popped out at them was the Hebrew Scripture, which says that a star would appear when the Messiah was to be born, when the King was to be born. And so they came to Judea. And as would have been their tradition, they would have gone right to the palace and said, "We're here. Show us to Bethlehem." And after Herod found out what was going on, he was pretty excited, pretty upset that there was going to be a usurper to his throne. So they go off and they find Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and they would do what they would do for anyone of their status in their culture. They offered him the gifts of royalty: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now that might not seem like royalty to you, but in the Middle Eastern culture, these were not ordinary things that you and I would have had, that common people would have had. And so these, in fact, were the gifts of power. Now, displayed back there by the baptistry is gold, frankincense, and myrrh. As you leave today, you can take a look at it. Please leave the gold. And understand that within the cultural context of these three guys, this was big stuff. This was important stuff. Now, what's that all mean to us? What it means to us is that from the very beginning, Jesus' task was to embrace all mankind. Now, God, in his wisdom, could have chosen the Messiah to come from the great empires of the time. He could have been a Roman, he could have been an Egyptian, he could have been a Babylonian, he could have been an Assyrian, but he wasn't. God chose the Jewish people. At that point in their history, a people who were under subjugation by another country, a people who were fighting amongst themselves, a people who barely survived, having lost 10 of their 12 tribes. And yet he said, "This is where I want my Messiah to come from." And the reason was he didn't want any interference. He didn't want anyone confusing who Jesus was. He wasn't coming as a great ruler. He wasn't coming as one to overwhelm other nations. He was coming to win the hearts of all. So, as you and I pray today, we need to celebrate this Epiphany, which simply means a making known a manifestation. We need to celebrate the fact that God has loved all of us so much that he has chosen to come into our midst. And he welcomes us all. No matter what we look like or where we come from, he welcomes us all. And that's the great imagery of the three wise men, that they represent the races of the world. They represent all the great variety which God created in the world. They represent the fact that even though we may not look alike or sound alike or possess some of the same qualities, we are in fact created equal in the eyes of God, that we are equally loved no matter what we look like. So as you and I pray today, we need to take this message of God seriously, that he has embraced all nations. He has embraced all peoples. He has embraced everyone as his children. And we need to show to God's creation the respect that God has shown to us. The three wise men came and showed respect to Christ. And Christ's message to us is that we must now show that same respect to each other. That we are God's creation. And if we respect our God, then we will respect what he has created. So as you and I pray today, let us plumb the depths of our heart. As we stand at the head of this new year, let us challenge ourselves. Let us look at our lives and ask ourselves, what prejudices do we have within our life? Who is it that we're not comfortable with? And why can't we see within them the presence of God? What keeps us blind? What keeps us from fully embracing the light of Christ? What keeps us from fully embracing the power of grace which God places within us? The Epiphany. Jesus made himself known to us. We must now make him known to others. We must embrace all. We must, without prejudice, love all, for God has made us all. Let us show the respect to each other that the wise men showed to Christ. Let us show that same respect to those with whom we walk. The Epiphany, the making known of salvation to we who are not Jews. Today is our day of salvation. Today is our day that Christ was made known to us. Let us now make him known to others. Be at peace.